Have you ever wondered why people act the way they do, even when it makes no sense? Psychology reveals that most of our behavior isn't logical, it's emotional. From the way we judge others in seconds to how our brains lie to protect our ego, these hidden mental patterns shape every decision you make, often without you even realizing it. Once you see these truths, you'll never look at human behavior the same way again. The halo effect is one of the most powerful and deceptive cognitive biases in human psychology. It occurs when your overall impression of a person, often based on a single positive trait, colors your judgment of their entire character. In other words, if someone seems attractive, confident, or intelligent, you're more likely to believe they're also kind, honest, and capable, even without evidence. This concept was first identified by psychologist Edward Thorndike in 1920. In his classic experiment, military officers were asked to rate their soldiers on various qualities, like leadership, intelligence, physical appearance, and loyalty. Thorndike discovered that when a soldier was rated highly in one area, such as appearance or discipline, the officer tended to rate them highly across all other traits too, even when there was no real connection between them. He called this the halo effect, because one positive trait seemed to cast a halo of goodness over everything else. Since then, decades of research have confirmed how pervasive and subtle this effect is. For example, a 1972 study by Dion, Berstiad, and Walster found that physically attractive people are perceived as more intelligent, friendly, and socially competent than less attractive people, a bias that affects hiring decisions, legal judgments, and even dating choices. This is why job candidates who look the part often get hired more easily, and why charismatic people can gain influence faster, even when their skills don't match their image. The halo effect doesn't just apply to people, it affects brands, products, and even ideas. When Apple releases a new product, people often assume it's excellent simply because the company has a reputation for innovation and quality. This same bias explains why people might overrate a restaurant if it has a beautiful interior, or why students think a teacher is more competent if they're well-dressed. Psychologically, the halo effect exists because the human brain is wired for cognitive efficiency, not perfect logic. We make rapid judgments based on limited information to save mental energy. This quick, emotional decision-making is part of our evolutionary heritage, a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors decide, within seconds, whether someone was trustworthy or dangerous. But in modern life, this shortcut often leads to systematic misjudgments. The consequences can be serious. In education, teachers may grade students more leniently if they seem polite or enthusiastic. In law, juries may unconsciously treat attractive defendants more favorably. And in relationships, people often ignore red flags simply because the other person appears charming or successful. The key to overcoming the halo effect is awareness. By consciously questioning your first impressions, you can slow down your automatic thinking and look at people and situations more objectively. Ask yourself, am I judging this person's entire character based on one positive quality? Once you recognize this mental bias, you start to see through the illusions that shape everyday life. Cognitive dissonance is one of the most fascinating and unsettling ideas in psychology. It explains why people often justify actions that contradict their own beliefs, and why we sometimes hold on to lies even when the truth is obvious. The term was introduced by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1957, and it remains a cornerstone of modern social psychology. At its core, cognitive dissonance refers to the mental discomfort we feel when our beliefs, values, or actions are inconsistent with one another. The human brain craves internal harmony. It wants our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to line up neatly. When they don't, the resulting tension pushes us to resolve it, often not by changing our behavior, but by changing our beliefs to make ourselves feel better. Here's a simple example. Imagine you believe smoking is bad for your health, but you still smoke. This creates dissonance because your behavior contradicts your belief. To reduce that uncomfortable tension, you might rationalize it. My grandfather smoked and lived to 90. Or, I only smoke socially. These justifications don't change reality, but they help your mind restore a sense of balance. Festinger's original research made this bias visible in a groundbreaking 1959 study with his colleague James Carl Smith. Participants were asked to perform a boring task and then lie to another participant, telling them it was enjoyable. Some were paid $1, and others $20 for the lie. Interestingly, those paid only $1 later reported genuinely believing the task was fun. Why? Because they experienced more dissonance. Lying for such a small reward felt unjustified, so they unconsciously changed their belief. It was actually kind of fun to resolve the internal conflict. This experiment revealed a deep truth. Humans often change their beliefs to match their actions, not the other way around. That's why people stay loyal to toxic relationships, defend failed ideologies, or deny evidence that contradicts their worldview. It's easier to twist reality than to admit we were wrong. Cognitive dissonance shapes everything from consumer behavior to politics. When people buy an expensive product that disappoints them, they often convince themselves it was worth it, a phenomenon known as buyer's justification. In politics, voters may ignore corruption or scandals from their preferred leaders because admitting the truth would mean acknowledging that their moral or political judgment was flawed. Neuroscience research supports this, showing that when people experience dissonance, areas of the brain associated with emotional conflict, like the anterior cingulate cortex, become active. When they resolve it by rationalizing, reward centers light up, meaning self-deception literally makes the brain feel good. The takeaway? Cognitive dissonance is not weakness, it's human nature. But awareness is power. By recognizing when you're rationalizing or defending an inconsistency, you can start aligning your actions more closely with your values. Growth begins the moment you stop lying to yourself, not because it's comfortable, but because it's true. Have you ever laughed just because everyone else was laughing, even if you didn't find the joke funny? Or chosen a crowded restaurant over an empty one because it must be better? That's social proof in action, a powerful psychological phenomenon that explains why humans tend to follow the behavior of others, especially when they're uncertain about what to do. The concept of social proof was popularized by psychologist Robert Cialdini in his influential 1984 book, Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. He defined it as the tendency to view actions as more correct when other people are doing them. In simple terms, we assume that if many people believe something or behave a certain way, it must be right. Social proof is deeply rooted in evolution. Thousands of years ago, following the group often meant survival. If everyone in your tribe ran in one direction, it was safer to run with them, even if you didn't know why. This instinct still operates today, shaping modern decisions from what we buy to what we believe. Our brains are wired to use others' behavior as a mental shortcut when we lack clear information. One of the earliest demonstrations of this effect was conducted by psychologist Solomon Asch in his famous conformity experiments in the 1950s. Participants were asked to judge the length of lines on a card. When everyone else in the group, who were actually actors, deliberately gave the wrong answer, 75% of participants conformed at least once, agreeing with the obviously incorrect response. The reason? The pressure to fit in and avoid social rejection overpowered their perception of truth. Modern research shows that social proof influences almost every area of life. In marketing, for example, seeing bestseller or most popular choice triggers the assumption that a product is valuable because others have chosen it. Online, likes, views, and comments create digital social proof, shaping our perception of quality and trustworthiness. Studies show that people are more likely to share, follow, or purchase something if they see that others have already done so. Social proof also drives groupthink, when the desire for harmony leads people to suppress dissenting opinions. This is common in workplaces, politics, and even scientific communities, where challenging the majority can feel risky. The result is collective decision-making that prioritizes consensus over truth. On a neurological level, brain imaging studies have found that social agreement activates the reward centers of the brain, while disagreement triggers regions associated with pain and anxiety. This means conformity literally feels good, and standing out feels uncomfortable. But while social proof helps us navigate uncertainty, it can also mislead us. Crowds can be wrong, trends can be irrational, and popularity doesn't equal truth. From financial bubbles to viral misinformation, the human tendency to follow others can create mass illusions. The key to mastering social proof is self-awareness. When you notice yourself agreeing with a group or following a trend, pause and ask, "Do I actually believe this, or am I just going along with everyone else?" True wisdom comes not from rejecting the crowd, but from understanding why you feel pulled toward it.